Present.
No, that's
All right,
it's
I can
recording.
make sure you're.
It's all good.
Information on issues that are affecting you this way. More with Waskam, the current affairs program on radio for Emelda.
It's 6 minutes past 9 here on Radio 4MW. As we say, Debe Dim Kapu Migi Batanga. Welcome to the Muraguwa Waka News and Current Affairs program here with Gilmore Johnson this morning. I'm filling in for Jen and Osa for this Friday edition of the program, a jam-packed program for you this morning as I brought you the Brekibot program just the past couple of hours. I said we've got some special guests here. A big weekend. It's usually a big time this time of the year around July 1. We have families, guests traveling from right across the country, even also abroad too, who come to visit our region for this weekend. But this is only all part of NAIDOC, but also a very important story which I'm excited about this yarn. So I'm pretty sure you are all too, and there is something very special happening here. We're going to welcome to the program our special guest here. We welcome to the program our councillor and Waskam, Emelda Davis, and also we welcome Australia's well, the High Commissioner Vanuatu, Samson Vilvil Whare, Vanuatu's High Commissioner to Australia. Welcome. We say Mayan, we say Saungapa. Welcome to Radio 4MW. Welcome to Kare country.
Thank you to us.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Now, I just wanted to start off by saying, well, welcome, and of course, welcome to Kare country, and you've had a welcome dinner last night with the family, so we'll ask you about that. But tell us, Councillor Davis, what brings you to this part of the country here?
Yes, I just wanted to also acknowledge country that I am on Kara country and extend a really warm thank you to Eliza and his beautiful wife Ivy, who attended a welcome dinner last night, and Auntie Enid.
Mm-hmm.
She's one of the traditional owners as well, and I'm really grateful, and because there was sorry business happening and they made time to meet with us at dinner last night, and I want to extend my condolences to all the families that have lost through this sorry business, and incredibly grateful to be here on country for this important event. I want to also acknowledge Vonda Malone, who's one of our first female mayors of the Torres Strait, for making this possible as well. Went off script there. No.
That's good. That's good. And we also welcome the High Commissioner. Would you like to say some opening words there? Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. As we say in my language, thank you means sipasili, and that means thank you for inviting us here up in the Torres Strait. Myself too, before I start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're on today here. And I'd also like to pay my respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. And I joined Councillor Davis today to also acknowledge the family on the sorry business here on the island, and my heart goes out to the family. I know that it's a very difficult time for our families, but they still made time to meet us yesterday, and we're very grateful for that, and we're very humble and privileged to be here. And I would also like to join also again Councillor Davis for thanking Vonda for inviting us up here, and it is my first time up here, and I feel like I'm home. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Davis, tell us about your connection to the South Pacific, and also your involvement as a founder of the South Sea Islander organisation in Port Jackson.
Okay, so I'm woman Tana Ambai Santo. My grandfather was stolen from Vanuatu. He was 12 years old, he and two of his friends, and bought to cut sugarcane in Bundaberg, so up there on that very neat sugar plantation that was managed by CSR Sugar. But I'm also, so through that Santo family that I'm finding very strongly is the connection to the Aboriginal communities of Innisfail, then Cape York, Bamaga and Erebor Islands. So finding family all throughout Australia since we've been advocating for this recognition of Australian South Sea Islanders over the last 15 odd years. But that's not without building on the shoulders of the greats so that have led the way in activism, and I want to acknowledge our founding elders, which is Auntie Benita Mabo, Auntie Shireen Malamu, my mother Nellie Inez, Uncle Graham Mooney. Some of these names have been around for a long time, Auntie Avis Degara, and just Uncle Victor Horrower as well. So these are the mob that marched me into Sydney Town Hall and said, okay, she needs to set up this organisation back in 2010. So it's not without them and their families that I've done this work, and also the mob from Tweed who have led the call for recognition for Australian South Sea Islanders. So, you know, one of the challenges, and I've missed half the question, I guess, but
just wanted to tell you, you explained that there about your connection, which is through Vanuatu, and also your involvement in the South Sea Islander organisation.
Yeah, Australian South Sea Islanders, Port Jackson. Port Jackson's the colonial term for Sydney Harbour.
Yes. No, thank you for that, His Excellency. Welcome again. Can you just tell us a bit about your roots, your connection, and also the work that you do as the High Commissioner?
Thank you. I think it's important to just mention the beginning of the work that we're doing with Australian South Sea Islanders in Australia. As you know, when I came here, I first came in. I took up this position back in 2019 November, and we immediately started working with the Australian South Sea Islanders, Port Jackson, especially understanding that Australian South Sea Islanders are a core business for Vanuatu, as well as a lot of connections with Vanuatu happened and continues to happen between our two countries. I would like to say that obviously we work very closely with Councillor Davis and her team, wonderful team. We've been doing a lot of advocacy, outreach, whether at the government level, but also at the community level in both countries as well, mentioning, you know, the plight of Australian South Sea Islanders. Obviously history, we can't change the history, but we can only learn and make it a better outcome for the future. We can't change what happened in the past, but we strongly believe that we could definitely influence and change what's coming next. And so it is really important for our two countries to work closely together and tap into all the resources that we have in terms of working with different communities of Australian South Sea Islanders in Australia. We've been working a lot in different parts of Australia with the communities as well. What we do understand from, especially for someone like me that was new at that time in understanding the full core of the topic itself and what it brings to the table. What is understandable at that time was that we came to notice that the Australian South Sea Islanders communities in Australia have dual and tricultural background.
Yes.
And that means that it means that they could be either Australian South Sea Islanders from any of the countries in the Pacific, the 5 main countries of the supply of the labor back in those days, but also they could also have Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders background as well. And so we embrace that. We work closely in embracing those cultures together, because we always believe that diversity always wins. And it is important for us to embrace that diversity amongst our Australian South Sea Islanders community that have a dual and tricultural background, whether it be Aboriginal or Torres Strait as well, and also other culture out there as well. So it is important for us to understand that and to say that we need to look at this as a win-win situation for all of us. And obviously working closely with Councillor Davis and the organization, we've had a lot of success, not only in Australia, but also back in Vanuatu, to talk about the topic and to make sure that more people are aware of it, and to also encourage the exchange between our people, especially under the people-to-people connection, which is so important for us, and especially as Pacific Islanders, but also from Vanuatu or from the Torres Strait. we need to continue that connections in linking up together and share our common history, but also common values as well that we have between us.
I'm excited because you're going to have an opportunity to do that today and over the weekend right here on TI. So you've, Councillor Davis, you're going to have a women's empowerment talk happening this morning. And congratulations to you too. Hard work not only as a woman, but as a black woman in very white, male-dominant area and the area of politics.
Yes.
And I know the work that you've done in Sydney and across the region as well. You've highlighted this. You've brought this story out. It's one of those stories that Australia like to put under the carpet, under the mat.
Secret.
I don't know. It's a little secret, but it's I think for many, and of course I acknowledge the work you're working here with Vonda, Malone, and the Gila family as well, and their story is quite well known throughout our region here, but also other families group. We sort of think we look up for the waters, and that is the Yagaripla family there. We come from there.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what it's like on the other side, and how's that work been done with connecting from the other side of it? They obviously must feel that too, Yaga. Our families went a long way. They never returned back home yet. So there is this. The emotional journey of where we come from, and we're talking about the 1800s. We're talking about a very fierce, brutal, colonial invasion and oppression of people right throughout Melanesia, right throughout the Pacific region, and we're still fighting for that right and recognition. We've seen an uprising just recently in the media with our mob standing up, and rightfully do so. And we've also seen a re-emergence of quality, strong leadership in our communities. We've had delegations just recently starting to make that link, traveling over to places like Vanuatu. We recently had a delegation attend some of the festivals. We've had just a recent explosion of the, I suppose I'd say it's like a lighting of a fire there in Hawaii recently for the Pacific Arts Festival, and seeing our people come together there. I was wild. I would have liked to have been there, but you know what I mean. But to see that coming together of all nations, I see a very strong uprising happening throughout the Pacific. How do you see it from where you are?
I'm overwhelmed and elated at the fact that Vanuatu last year hosted the first MacFest.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was the 7th event, and it's Melanesian Arts and Culture Festival. And even more so, it was so critical for the region because Australia is home, which people don't understand necessarily, especially those in power, to the largest Melanesian population outside of its Melanesian island states. And this is inclusive of Wansolwara, which is our Aboriginal Torres Strait and Australian South Sea Islander peoples. Yes, we are distinctly different, but that trait from those 60,000 that were brought in here, starting with Letho and New Caledonia, that's that uprising you're talking about, the fight for self-determination and self-governance. They were one of the first islands that were affected in Tanna Island and Vanuatu in 1847 in particular. That's academic year, 1847 by Benjamin Boyd, bringing them to New South Wales. So we talk about the sugar trade, but it started with New South Wales, managed the trade on Burnsville Street right there in Sydney, managed all those trade ships, and I guess that truth-telling in that the New South Wales government has recently acknowledged by changing Benjamin Boyd, one of the largest national parks in Australia, to its traditional name, as we Australian South Sea Islands Port Jackson worked with the local Aboriginal Land Council over the last decade, but in getting that name changed. So that was a real coup for us last year, recognising that Melanesian connection. And we need to speak more of that because we do see a lot of Polynesian, culture, arts, etc. But the focus needs to really build on this Melanesian, because they're still drawing on our people. There's so much kinship, understanding. The languages came from this trade that we're speaking today, as you speak in your custom dialect, and the High Commissioner speaking in Bishlama. That language was formed in Bundaberg, Queensland, because of the trade, bringing all their mobs and clans together with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander dialects, rich, diverse language bases. So again, that Melanesian focus, and we've got to really get this government to understand that reconnection, rebuilding that has to happen before we can get sustainability in the region, because there's all these other influences going on, but Australian South Sea Islanders have always been here. Mob know, we know who we are, we look at each other, we see the stamp on everyone's face. No good. My daughter was over there and she's like, hey, that looks like, and just ticking off people that look like mirror our mobs here in Australia. So I'm excited for the change that's coming about, and slowly with the work with the Vanuatu High Commissioner in particular, over the last 4 years, it's been a real catalyst for us as we lock horns and we go into those rooms and have those hard conversations, and we call it out in terms of the need for recognition of our people, but also what's happening with the seasonal worker program, bringing mob in again from those same Melanesian islands. I just wanted to quickly say that those islands affected through this trade that went for 50 odd years, building a circular economy. There were 1.5 million trafficked around the Pacific region, Asian, Pacific, obviously, those mob from these 80 islands of Vanuatu, trafficked to build a circular economy, and then 60,000 brought to Queensland after New South Wales in 1847. So Sydney has a lot to answer for in terms of its economy being built on the back of Atlantic slavery, but also fessing up to the fact that they managed this trade. And through the City of Sydney Council, I've brought recognition of that slave trade in its reality. And people, it's contentious to say slavery, yes. Of course. People say, oh, but they signed contracts, but you're talking about non-English speaking countries, that were reaped and pillaged of their male populations, and in some cases entire islands lost their young men, and they were brought here. What do you think they're doing? They're rebuilding economy, they're rebuilding families. 60,000 men stolen, that's a fact. 5% of that trade were women and children. So it's evident that we have this bloodline and kinship.
And a very big contribution to building the colonial state of Queensland and New South Wales. So that part has also haven't been spoken about, as well as the work they were brought here under the Dutch labour, but also they pretty much built the economy of both the two colonial the colonies of Queensland and New South Wales.
Yeah, it's really interesting because when I hear people, and the more being in Torres Strait, and everybody's got something or some identity with either Vanuatu Solomons or Niue, or something like that, but it makes sense, it's solidifying, because that 60,000 men that came in, they're settling. There were 8,000 taken from Papua New Guinea to Townsville. 8,000. Could you imagine Townsville receiving 8,000 blackfellas? Yeah? What do you think they're doing? They're recreating their communities.
I just wanted to hand over that to His Excellency. You've got a revitalising the Torres Strait and Pacific connection, and this is something that the work that you're doing through the High Commission. Can you tell us what are you going to go through that information session today? What to sort of expect, or what would you like the community members that are listening now, would you like them to bring to the discussion today? And even while you're here, you're going to be at Ibis supermarket this afternoon for a public engagement there, and you'll be able to meet with the community. We'll be able to come and have a yarn with you. And of course, tomorrow we'll be finalising with a community family feasting hosted there by the Gila family there. But what will you be presenting as part of this revitalising the Torres Strait and Pacific connection session today at the as part of your visit here?
Thank you. I think this is a very good question, and I think I have if I have to brand my talks today, I think it's so important to understand the people-to-people connection. I would say we've always heard about small islands and how they go through a lot of challenges, man-made, but also natural disasters. Especially the biggest one right now on the world stage is climate change and all of that. I would like to say that we need to probably think the other way around on when we speak about our islands. I want to say that we're islands of opportunities and islands of connections, yeah. And so, and that where the people-to-people actions or activities are transcend those two powerful words that I've just mentioned about islands of opportunities and people of opportunities. That's what I wanted to say, because we can't be thinking that something that has happened in the past will hold us down and will not make us move forward. I think it's so important in the era that we're in today to encourage, to work towards these connections between our people. And connections would mean connections between families that have been displaced back then, that have lost links between their countries, but also connection through the cultural connections. Meaning, we encourage more artists from the Torres Strait to come and perform in Vanuatu and vice versa. Maybe even looking at having probably the possibilities of having resident artists and exchange of artists between our islands, which will be definitely something to encourage. And the work that I'm doing, I'm encouraging that to have more of our artist connections. Because when I look at the Torres Strait artifacts, I see a lot of similarities with our islands. I see a lot of good work that they're doing, and the stories behind those art, the piece of arts, are similar to what we have back home as well. So I really want to encourage us to work towards that in connection of artists and having resident artists between our countries. This is one of the people-to-people connections that we're talking about. And so I also see where we could also exchange in terms of our technical people. Strengthening that knowledge of our technical people. I understand, and I'm grateful to the Australian government for sending us, a lot of technical support and technical people. I would like to see, this is one of my big wish to see in the future, that those technical people that are coming from Australia, whether from the state or from the Commonwealth level, be from the Australian South Sea backgrounds, be from the islands, be from the Torres Strait, because we have that cultural connections already. And so once you've already had that cultural connection, it's easy for those ones that are coming and bringing those huge background of knowledge and technical capacities from Australia to connect with us, because they already know who we are and they have the lived experience already, whether living on the islands here, but also living on the mainland, having that connection where they would understand how programmatic elements of these programs can work. An example would be in terms of health. I understand in Australia you have First Nations health programs and all of that, which are so relevant to us in the Pacific and Vanuatu. So I would like to see more of these exchange, but bringing people, technical people that have lived experience in the communities and can work together with us. Climate change is another area that I mentioned earlier that, connections people to people could also address and could leverage on. We could share our experiences. Right now in the world, we hear a lot about what they call nature-based solutions in climate change. What do we mean by nature-based solutions? What we mean by that is that all the solutions that nature has offered us. And if you ask me right now, I couldn't think of a better people in the world that use nature, that live with nature, that always use the nature for their survival than the indigenous people, than the people on the islands, that they use those natures actually solutions. And so it's just the traditional knowledge that they have actually to protect the marine resources, for example, just an example. Or it's a traditional knowledge that they have to protect the forest, to make sure that the forest actually is sustainable, or the marine life is sustainable, because we as indigenous people, we've lived with those nature, we've lived with our environment for centuries, for thousands of years, so we understand the nature. And so today, when you look at the climate change aspects of solutions, they're now calling it nature-based solutions, but it's actually traditional knowledge that we as indigenous people, we've been using it for centuries. And so I want us to promote that via the work that we're doing here. So to link those people, whether it be for arts and culture, whether it be for technical people that we have, and I'm totally sure that we have so many of our people here that are, from the small islands, but also from the mainland, that have those technical knowledge background that would support our countries and islands in the Pacific in terms of that. And then the culture to culture, people to people, such as, Councillor Davis has spoken about the MacFest, the Melanesian Art Festival. We would like to see more of that as well. Yeah, more of those connections. So these are some of the areas that I think that will be so important to develop and work into it. Like I said, we need to rebrand it. We don't want people to always see us as islands where we have lots of challenges, but I want us to see each other as a power that is rested within the people that we have. That's our power. So how do we make sure that we look at those islands to say islands of opportunities, but also people of opportunities as well, meaning people that will help in moving our agenda forward in a sustainable way, and speaking, and because they have that lived experience, they could move that out forward and making sure that we have more of these connections between us. Thank you.
Wow, very, very empowering. I like how the way you explain things. And if you just joined us here on Radio 4MW, that's Vanuatu's High Commissioner there to Australia, Samson Vilvilfare, joining us here, along with City of Sydney Councillor Waskam Emelda Davis. And it's a blessing to have you here at Radio 4MW and in our community here over the next couple of days. And that people to connection, but also the looking at as islands of opportunities. And this week on an island, just in our Central Islands, is Yam Island. They've got a festival called the Mangrove Festival. So the communities there, they've got 5 different species of the mangrove. I think it's 80 or 100 species, but there's 5 just on a small island. And we're going to be bringing some more interviews. We just come back from there, but the 5, there's like a hardwood in there, so you can build. There's of course, the mangrove, what food it attracts, all the mussels and oysters and crabs and all that stuff. But also there's a mangrove that says to start a fire. There's the salt, the one for the natural sauce. So there's all these elements that we have, and that's just only one little small island. Just abundantly throughout our region. We looked after and cared for country, and I like how you've explained that, how we know society tend to see it as a nature-based, solutions, but it's traditional knowledge-based.
It is basically traditional knowledge, because that's who we are. We've been living with that environment, and we understand how the environment behaves. And we also understand when we are little, our parents would always tell us, our grandparents would say, take only enough what you can eat today.
Yes.
Don't take everything from the ocean. Or sometimes they'll tell you that, oh no, the ocean is being banned for a number of months. And when you're a little kid, you don't understand why I can't go and fish and everything, but it's just that it's the reproductive season, and that's why they stop. Because we lived with that sustainability. And when we talk about sustainability, it always makes me laugh, because sustainability is the right term actually that is associated with indigenous people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that you said it's been created yesterday. It's not something that it's been created. It's because we've lived that sustainable life for centuries. For centuries we've been living that sustainable life, and that's why our resources, whether it be marine or forest, are always replenished, because we know when to balance that. Actually, we know when to fish and we know when to stop, actually. And so also we know what to fish as well amongst the mud crab, for example, where we only get the male mud crab instead of getting the female one, because then that reproduction cycle is ongoing. It doesn't stop. But sadly today we see a lot of disruptions in our environment as well. And you talk about mangroves. Mangroves play a huge and crucial roles today in our living, in our everyday living, because they don't only protect our islands from cyclones when the waves and everything comes in, they're also nesting sites for fish. there are nesting sites for crabs and all of that. So that's sustainability, and sometimes I think it's so important. And I've always made fun with Counselor by telling Counselor that without traditional knowledge, science does not exist.
That's true.
That's true. Yes.
Without traditional knowledge, science does not exist, and the holders of the traditional knowledge are the indigenous people.
Boom. Mic drop.
That's an absolute mic drop. I'm actually mic drop. I'm writing that down. That's the thought for today, and I think the thought for the rest of the
I'm telling
rest
you.
of the year. I think. Yeah, Councillor Davis, you want to just add on to what the Commissioner has just said? There's some very empowering and an inspiring way of empowering our people,
Well,
black people.
I think what it is, it's very much about self-determination. And if we continue to look, we have to work in collaboration with governments, but at the same time, they need to respect our independent ways of life, knowing, being, doing, and sustainable solutions in what the High Commissioner's just been speaking about in addressing climate action or climate change, climate issues, whatever the words they are using today. And the same with leadership. And, we demonstrate leadership through people such as Vonda being the first woman Torres Strait lady to lead Torres Strait, as a mayor. Like, this stuff is there. We need to be empowered to continue this great work and build capacity for ourselves. If governments want to come on board, that's great. I think it's fantastic, but self-determination is key. And there's a young gentleman who's travelling with us, Shola Diop from DAI Capital, and it's very much about that philanthropy and independent way of doing things for ourselves, and admittedly, he's my son. I'm incredibly proud of the work he's done over the years, but that sustainable solution is the key focus, because he's grown up witnessing the activism. I'm an activist, I'm a single mother of two. That's, the first black woman on council for the City of Sydney in 180 years. Go figure.
Yep.
I had a year 12 education, and the rest is self-determined. So, we can do this no matter who you are, and I look forward to sharing with so many people, but also learning today. This is about a learning exercise, about understanding who we are. It's not about any particular expert. It's very much about, hey, can we get to know each other, and how do we work together, and how do we continue to take back what is ours, because there was so much taken from us as kings, queens, leaders, people that have sustained our island homes, and especially those women, with all those men being stolen, having to rebuild communities, and also empowering our men, revitalizing that whole relationship around family and what that looks like as strong black people, but empowering our men and giving back to what was taken from them as well, because the generational trauma from slavery is real, quoting my daughter here, but very much so to disempower and disrupt, dispossess. So we're in a vulnerable state, but not today, not today. There's so much here, and I want to acknowledge you and your leadership and how formidable you are in just navigating this whole process, because you've got machinery running. I mean, that's a real technical skill, brother. And deadly, trying to stay on track with all of the, the questions and everything. You're just brilliant.
Yeah.
You're just brilliant.
Well, wanted to say that, we talked about all the challenges, all the hardship, and particularly in Vanuatu, power, water. But as of May this year, Happy Planet Index has said Vanuatu has been ranked the top country,
Again?
the most happiest in 20 years. Only country in 20 years been very happy people. So, and when we look at our communities, and I know too, when we do have sorry business sometimes too, it really brings stuff together. We cannot keep coming together as a community, as a family for sorry time. We need to come in when we
Who's ringing?
look out.
Hey, look out. Hi, Commissioners.
Sorry.
What are the many phones there?
We've got about 3 or 4 phones running at the same
Long
time.
as it's not the red phone. So I understand the presidents are going to be having a bit of a debate today in America, but hopefully that's not going to affect us. But yeah, happy planet. Vanuatu, we as and I mentioned there, sorry time we come together, but and we come together, but we need to come together more so, than ever, and I think we can create events like festivals, we can create yarning circles, and today is an excellent opportunity to come together,
Yeah, I think it's, if I just wanted to, I may add one little thing. I think it's also important for this trip also to learn from others as well. I'm ready and I'm so eager to listen to the community, what they're going to tell us. It's always amazing to come and see them. Just as yesterday, we've learned the auntie and the uncle that were telling me, they trace back their roots to Tana Island in Vanuatu, and so it's really heartwarming to hear those stories. And I've traveled across this country and I've met a lot of our communities that trace back their roots to Vanuatu, and it's really heartwarming to know that. And I would like to encourage that, the connections between Vanuatu, especially. I'm a bit biased here. I'm talking about Vanuatu because I'm from there, but I'd really like to see more of these connections between both countries in terms of finding back their families as well back home. We would always be ready to support you in terms of locating which village you come from and all your grandparents, great-great-grandparents come from as well in Vanuatu. I think this is also something that we would like to see with the Australian government as well, working closely to help those families in tracing back their roots back to wherever village or islands they come from in Vanuatu. And I think very quickly in terms of the Planet Index, the happiest place on earth, I think sometimes when we look at those ranking and all of that, yes, I think we're ranked the second time again, and this is a sign for all of our families. Come and visit us.
Yes.
Come back and visit
Come
us.
home.
Come home and visit us, and so we're always there to welcome you. But on a more, I would say, technical side of things, sometimes we think that happy places or happy countries are based on a dollar value. And when you come across Vanuatu and people are questioning, and sometimes I got those questions, how can you be the happiest place on earth and yet, people say you are poor and all of that, because sometimes the value of the money does not determine your happiness. And it's the family, it's the family connections, but also your community and your environment that will determine how happy you are. You would see if you come across different parts of Vanuatu, if you go and visit, and you'll see people have actually basically probably no money, but they're still the most happiest people. They'll smile at you, they'll say hello to you, they'll even give you food, and so these are some of the elements of life sometimes that really reminds me and humble me that dollar value is not everything that would make somebody happy, but it's those little moments that these family connections where you meet your relatives again, or you do something for them that makes you really happy. And that's why I think with this trip here, these family connections are so important, because they bring that extra assets, I would call it emotional assets, to the families to be reconnected with their loved ones back home. And so we're really looking forward to continue the work that we're doing to reconnect those families back to their homeland, and making sure that they also understand where they come from too. So which sometimes we say the sense of belonging is so important. Obviously those families are here contributing massively to this country, and part of this country, they are the interesting part of this country, or they're integrated in this country. But also I would like to tell them also that you also have another country where you're welcome to come and visit, and please come home and visit.
Yes, beautiful. Councillor Davis and High Commissioner, thank you very much. We'll finish up, but you want to?
No, go on.
You go first.
You go.
No, you go. I respect my elders.
Hey, all right then. Let me. No, sorry.
No, yeah, Mr. Yeah.
No,
I'm putting my leg up. I might make a cup of tea, I think.
I'm sorry. I was just so inspired.
Mike's all yours, Councillor Davis. Go ahead.
I was just inspired by
Yes.
High Commissioner, and yes, we're speaking from Vanuatu heavy, I guess, perspective, simply because the majority of the trade was stolen from Vanuatu, at least 90% of the trade, and 30% of those blackbirded were also from Solomon Islands. But that's not without recognising New Caledonia, Papua New Guinea, Kiribati, Tuvalu and Fiji, as well as those islands that were blackbirded. But I must also say Vanuatu has led the way in terms of some of the, heavy political topics in support for West Papua, but also the ICJ decision heading that up. And in particular, which we are grateful for as Australian South Sea Islanders, recognition in the Constitution, their founding document of Australian South Sea Islanders in 2012, 2022 for the foreign affairs, was it, the strategy, policy, recognising Australian South Sea Islanders, offering dual citizenship. So they're offering anyone of Australian South Sea Islander descent dual citizenship, and you pay the lowest rate administration fee in order to build capacity and work with between those bilateral relationships. And obviously we're going to continue building on that, but there's so much value there in economy building between the countries, that we can do from our own self-determined perspectives. I do want to acknowledge Torres Health in particular for the incredible support in making this day happen and bringing us into fruition, and Community Enterprise Queensland, which also supported this initiative, and the City of Sydney, who have assisted me in being able to attend, and not without, just said that one. But so, and also the community, because this work is not possible if the room's empty. So it's really important that people understand we're not here as the experts, but we're here to share our experiences. And we look forward to hopefully continuing ongoing relationships with the community and obviously these supporting bodies. So, and how do we build that capacity and take back what's ours? I mean, I'm big on that. I'm big on that self-determination, I guess, objective.
Wow, look, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed, and it's been a privilege and honour to have you here. And I only just got sort of called in for the interview, and I said, I did an interview that I said, yes, that's mine. Make sure you come in early. So I'm really honoured to have you coming into this organisation too, and it's it's our 40th year this year. So even to outwit, outlast, and outplay political. We're pretty much guided by how politics are travelled through the country and we navigate. But the history of this part of the country and its connection towards the Pacific is something unique that I think there are a lot of us that really know to the full depths of our connection back to that road. But when it comes time for this kind of, we sit around and yarn. And there's a lot of family reunions that have taken place. There's a couple that have taken place this year. And then talks are going to come out about great-grandfather, great-grandmother connection.
And I think it's aligned very well with these family principles that we have between Australia and the Pacific Island countries. And we have always said we're a family, but we need to also understand what do we mean by that when we say we're a family. And in our culture and tradition, when I call you family, it means I mean it. I just don't say it for the sake of saying it. So I think all these connections and people to people are contributing to that bigger picture of who we are in this region as a family. Together we can work on issues. When we have issues, we come together. When we have happy moments, we celebrate together. And when we also think about our future together, common future of this Pacific. And I think it's aligned very well too with the Pacific 2050 strategy. The Blue Pacific strategy that the Pacific Island Forum is putting out there. What do we want for our Pacific? So these connections, and I strongly believe, and you would agree with me, that a region or a sub-region is not what it is without its people. And the people are the powerhouse, and so that connection between our two people are so important, because these are what form us, these are what makes us who we are in this region, as not only Torres Strait Islanders or the Australians in general, but also the Pacific Islanders and New Vanuatu and Fijians and Papua New Guineans and Solomon Islanders. So this is what we are, this is who we are in this region. When we go out there and we say we're from the Pacific, what do we mean by that? So that is the key message, that we need to come together and then work together and then connect our people, making sure that we move forward so that we don't miss the boat, yeah?
Yes.
Because the rest of the world is moving forward, but we need to move forward as well, as have always done our ancestors back in the old days until today, bringing to us. But look, I'm here and I want to learn more about the connections between the families. I'm really eager to learn more of that, but also learning the way of life here as well is so important to me. I just also want to, thank everyone around this and again, reiterate my word of gratitude towards everyone that has made this happen. Also, obviously, I thank the Australian government as well for supporting Vanuatu in terms of different activities, different work that we've been doing, and we've had amazing relationship. We continue to have amazing relationship, and I can only hope for better. Thank you.
Yes, so
Yeah, I guess the Vanuatu government too, because leadership is key.
absolutely, and those small nations, I mean, they're called small nations, but we're powerful when we let the people and the story and the connection. So, today's an opportunity. So at 10:30 this morning, Women's Empowerment Talk, Councillor Emelda Davis will be leading that session there from 10:30, and then from 12:30, information session 2, revitalising the Torres Strait Pacific connection. His Excellency Samson will be there to share lived experience, and also you mentioned their meeting and just having that conversation, having that talk and having that connection. Then you'll be at the Ibis supermarket from 3 o'clock, and looking forward to the community family feasting. Councillor Davis, you got trade your merry dress for one of ours.
I'm telling you, I'm straight across the road to Mona.
Joining us with dancing.
And dancing.
I'll be dancing too. Look out.
Beautiful. Look, hey, it's good to have you in here, and also leading into another big week. We celebrate Happy NAIDOC Week,
It's
and
massive,
to you and in the community. And I know you also want to do with that big community down there in Sydney, and you know how we.
This is my
are
connection.
deadly there.
With Torres Strait, I'd be interested in finding out, because we do have that big strong connection in Sydney, and building capacity across the city of Sydney. As a councillor, I'd like people's thoughts on bringing a Mabo Day to the City of Sydney Council through a notice of motion for our next council meeting, so that we can commit to rolling out programs and services that address Torres Strait Islanders living in the City of Sydney, because we are one soul warrior. That connection never breaks. Circular economy, as we see, you were down there at Gadigal Radio for a short time, then now you're back here, then you'll be back there again. So, Torres Strait has made a significant contribution to the social justice and human rights for our First Nations, Australian South Sea Islander communities, and there's no visibility to the degree that it should be. So, as alongside our Aboriginal brothers and sisters, Gadigal country, we need to start thinking about that one soul warrior and how that works from our custom and LORE perspective. Law is key, law is first law, and all that other colonial project, we can work with that. But we need to try and get people's opinions on what they think, how that looks for this potential notice of motion. I'll get up next council meeting.
We'll be listening, watching the live stream at City in the council chamber. The Mayor Clover,
Lord Mayor Clover Moore. I'm on
yep.
her team. I'm on the governing team.
And you've also got Councillor Weldon,
Yes.
First Nations, as part of the City of Sydney.
Yeah, she's on the opposition, and she's a Wiradjuri woman. Independent.
Yep. Okay. Look. Big weekend.
Tough
Big weekend.
So much.
Yes, and look, we look forward to meeting with you, and we'll promote it a bit more over the weekend. And as for to Bonda Malone, and don't forget, the feasting is happening from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the TI Bowls Club here, hosted by the Gila family. We're approaching 10 o'clock here on Radio 4MW. News is up next. Next hour, we're going to be talking about illegal fishing, and federal member for Leichhardt Warren has blasted the federal government about 2 boats that have arrived just off our country here just recently. So we'll have that plus a whole lot more here on Radio 4MW.